It is a fair assessment to say that the Indian automotive industry has embarked on its electric mobility journey. This push can be attributed to the multi-fold growth in development work around electric vehicles, as well as their components and ecosystem. A major step in this direction is in the advancements towards the development of complete electric powertrains, which consist of the battery management system, motor, power electronics, transmission, and axles. To discuss this in deep, let me call upon Vikram Kirloskar, Vice Chairman, Toyota Kirloskar Motors, for a keynote presentation on Path to Electrification of Powertrain in India.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and all my colleagues and friends in the auto industry, and all the stakeholders to the path to electrification of the powertrain in India. You know, what is the biggest issue we face as we go ahead? And our whole industry has to transform to adapt to these big global mega trends. One is climate change, second is energy security, third is a healthy life, urbanization, air quality, and technology. These are the drivers for automotive transformation as we go ahead. What are India's national imperatives? We have, I think, two major ones. One is, of course, Make in India. And we have to realize our national goal of an economy of $5 trillion, which means that our manufacturing economy has to go up from 287 billion to about $1 trillion. In this, the auto sector plays a major role. It's 49% of the national manufacturing economy and creates 37 million jobs today, directly 2 million, and the rest are indirect. What are India's national imperatives? We talked about manufacturing. It's also self-reliance in the terms of what is the lowest cost, whether it is import of fuel or import of components. Nomura has done a small study or a pretty detailed study for different drivetrains as we go ahead, whether it's ethanol based or pure electric vehicle or hybrid or CNG. And the graph on the left is really the import of components over a 15-year period of a vehicle. And the graph on the right is the fuel import cost or the reduction in the fuel imports over the 15-year life of a vehicle. For example, on EV, the import of parts is showing 66.9 lakhs, and the fuel import reduction is 2.7 lakhs. So if you look at that and the sum total of it, there are different scenarios for different products, and therefore I think all technologies are going to be important as we go along. CNG also looks very, very good in this. When we talk of conversion to fully electric vehicles over a period of time, we are talking of 30% conversion to electric as we go ahead to 2030. That's our target. But that still leaves 70%. And we need to worry about that 70% of IC, how to convert those to make sure that we get the full benefit of fuel reduction, carbon reduction, and a good environment. So we have to look wholesomely at the industry as we go ahead towards electrification. What is an electric vehicle? There are three very basic components of an electric vehicle, the way we look at it from Toyota and Toyota Kirloskar. One is a motor, one is a battery, and one is a converter. And all three are the core parts of an EV powertrain. And these are the ones which we need to make as we go ahead. And a mix of these three parts plus an engine becomes a hybrid electric vehicle. Adding an engine and onboard charging with a bigger battery becomes a plug-in hybrid electric vehicle. You remove the engine and just have a huge battery, and you have a battery electric vehicle. Add a fuel cell and a hydrogen tank, and you get a fuel cell vehicle. So the core technology is very important, the core components, that is the motor, battery, and converter as we go along. Also, customer acceptance is very, very important. It's the key to adapting to this whole new generation of vehicles. We have to look at convenience and performance. We have to look at the entire value proposition. At global performance, we require global performance at an Indian price. What is the upfront cost and the total cost of ownership over the life of the vehicle? What is the infrastructure availability in terms of the type of fuel or the type of electricity and the quantum of electricity available, and the different areas where you can do charging? Also, what are the usage requirements? Are you going to use your vehicle for short distance or for a long distance? So India's strategy is we have to really look at different strategies for different kind of applications. This is a small graph just showing, pure battery electric vehicles. It's great for three-wheelers, two-wheelers, small cars running around the city. You have then also maybe some mass transit applications on the left. Then you have a range of plug-in hybrid vehicles. And then finally, when you go to a full-size truck or delivery trucks and route buses, you can look at the hydrogen economy, how it scales up and how you can use fuel cells to power these. Because hydrogen itself, it has a very high power density compared to a battery. From the way things are going on in India, it looks like the two-wheelers, the three-wheelers, and the government-sponsored city transport. The Indian government is spending a lot of money on electrifying city transport for commuters. I think this may be we are going to witness a faster electrification in these three areas. There are a lot of scope on battery exchanges between two-wheelers and three-wheelers, so charging at a different place. And I think there are many different entrepreneurs and innovators coming up in this space. And I'm sure we'll see a large growth in this area very fast. We have to look at both, that is demand generation and supply side intervention, to scale up the whole EV ecosystem. Demand creation is, of course, low taxes is one major story. Government encouraging purchase, also government purchasing on its own requirement like they're doing for buses. And also on demand creation, I think putting in the infrastructure for electrification. These are the, I think, important parts for demand creation. On the supply side, like the PLI scheme which has started, we need to figure out how to make 4 or 5 critical items in India and scale them up, perhaps by demand aggregation of EV parts by different manufacturers. Basically, we are talking of battery, high-tech motor components, power control units, and special electro steel that you require. These require, especially from the supply side, you require scale. And so I think incentives in the supply side, there is incentives not only to supply in India, but export. Also, demand aggregation can help in this ecosystem to create the scale for creating the ecosystem for EVs in India. The other very impactful policy lever, which has been talked about I've been hearing this at different conferences, different parts of the world, is a concept of a carbon-based tax. So excise duty or GST is based on really carbon emission. And carbon emission is proportionate typically to fuel consumption. Also, it's proportionate to climate change. Low carbon is good for climate change, good for the environment. It's good for fuel consumption. And a carbon-based tax can also be used not only for vehicles, but for a lot of other engineering products, air conditioners, and many other engineering products. So we feel that a carbon-based tax will better serve our national objectives. It will also attract investment for EV part manufacturing, and it will push the electrification faster, the acceptance faster. Some countries in our neighborhood like Thailand and Indonesia, Thailand has already started some kind of a carbon-based tax based on what is the emission and what's the technology, and Indonesia is proposing. When you follow carbon-based taxation, you become technology agnostic. Remember, in one of my earlier slides, I talked about what happens to the remaining 70% even by 2030. So we have to look at pushing the technology frontier in all the technologies and in all segments of vehicles. What is Toyota's contribution in the HEV, in the electrification area? Toyota has been electrifying vehicles from 97. I remember seeing, that is the hybrids, but they've had electric vehicles which were developed even earlier. And until now, I think 139 million tons of CO2 emissions have been, reduction in CO2 emissions have been achieved by Toyota if they had, as compared to a normal ICT, internal combustion engine ICE vehicle if they had sold, and 57 million kiloliters of fuel. So 16 million electrified vehicles have been made by Toyota until now, which also means, if you look in terms of scale, when I talk of scale, it means they have manufactured 32 million electric motors, 16 million batteries, and 16 million inverters. This has resulted in an enormous accumulation of electrification technology and experience and know-how. It's also resulted in several generations of electric motors, for example, which makes, and the newest motors are far more efficient, smaller than the first ones that were produced. Same story with the batteries in terms of safety, and same story in terms of the inverters, in terms of cost and quality and reliability and performance. So our vision, Toyota's vision, is to go to zero emissions by 2050, not only on the vehicle, but also in our entire production system. And we have started the work on our production areas already, also in India, very strongly. Our carbon emission levels in production have reduced dramatically. Our water usage levels have reduced dramatically. So all this work we are doing because we want to meet a zero CO2 total emission target by 2050. Our strategy is different vehicle solutions for different countries based on what is the predominant primary source of energy. This varies across the world. For example, in Norway, it is almost all hydro. It makes fantastic sense for a fully electric vehicle. Some countries are almost all nuclear, also makes fantastic sense for a fully electric vehicle. But where a primary source of energy is maybe coal and oil and gas, then perhaps a hybrid makes more sense. With the way Toyota has worked on technology over the years, our basic core technology of motor, inverter, and battery, applying into different drivetrains, we think we can provide a solution for each country's composition of energy source so it benefits that country. Toyota is committed to popularizing electric vehicle technology in India. Suzuki and Toyota have tied up together. One of the goals is mass electrification with Make in India, for India, and for global markets. We are focusing on the entire supply chain, whether it's from battery plant to the end of life vehicle dismantling and recycling units. So thank you very much for inviting me to be with you. I've tried to give an overall scope of what are the what is the potential of electrification. I think that a couple of key points are important. One is, what is the requirement of our country? It is across the board. It is not just only the electric vehicles, which may be 30% by 2030. We have to also think of the remaining 70% and see how to attack that to meet our country's objectives. We have to be technology agnostic across the board to push innovation and make sure we meet the national goals, the overall national goals. And third, keep pushing on Make in India, scaling up, perhaps carbon taxation. Look at all the different ideas that can encourage this ecosystem to go ahead, incentivize this ecosystem, incentivize customers, incentivize producers. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Kirloskar, for a great presentation on electrification of powertrain. With this, we'll move further to the next session. Stay tuned and keep sharing your tweets using the hashtag ETAuto EVC.